Hi, this is Lawrence Sanek at Homeseller Homebuyer Podcast with Homebuyer episode number 4. We'll be talking about the 11 worst homebuyer mistakes. Are you gearing up to buy your first home, a move-up home, or a second or vacation home? Shopping for a home is exciting, exhausting, and can be a little bit scary. In the end, your goal is to end up with a home you love at a price you can afford. Sounds simple enough, right? Unfortunately, many people make mistakes that prevent them from achieving this simple dream. Arm yourself with these tips to get the most out of your purchase and avoid 11 of the most costly mistakes that could put a hold on that sold sign going on the home you want. Those 11 worst homebuyer mistakes. Not knowing what you can afford. As we learned from the subprime mess, what the bank says you can afford and what you can really afford and are comfortable with are not necessarily the same. If you don't already have a budget, make a list of all your monthly expenses, excluding rent, including vehicle costs, student loans, credit card payments, groceries, health insurance, and don't forget those major expenses that only occur once a year like insurance premiums, annual vacations. Total that up and subtract it from your total take-home pay, and now you'll know how much you can spend on your new home on a monthly basis. If you end up looking at homes that are outside of your price range, you'll end up lusting after something you can't afford, which can put you in a dangerous position of trying to stretch for something beyond your means. You may even learn that you can't afford the type or size of home that you desire, and that you need to work on reducing either your monthly expenses or increasing your income. Second, do not skip the mortgage qualification phase. What you think you can afford and what the bank is willing to lend you may not match up, especially if you have poor credit or unstable income. So make sure to get pre-approved, not pre-qualified. And there is a difference between the two, and the pre-approved means everything in your financial life will be viewed by the lender. Pre-qualified, they just go on what you say. If you don't get pre-approved, you will be wasting the seller's time, the seller's agent's time, your buyer's agent's time, and your time if you sign a contract and discover later that the bank won't lend you what you need or that it's only willing to give you a mortgage that you find unacceptable. Be aware that even if you're pre-approved for a mortgage, your loan can fall through at the last minute if you do something to alter your credit score prior to the closing transaction on the home. How will that happen? Financing and purchasing a car, applying for credit for furniture for the new home, as well as many others that will be covered in another podcast. If you cause the deal to fall through, you may have to forfeit several $1,000s that you put up for your money escrow deposit when you went under contract. Failing to consider additional expenses. Once you're a homeowner, you have additional expenses on top of your monthly payment. Unlike when you were a renter, you'll be responsible for paying property taxes, insuring your home against disasters, and making any repairs the house needs. Some expensive items like a new roof or a new furnace. Also HOA fees. If you are in a development that is an HOA community, the HOA fees can be and will be mandatory at times. If you're interested in purchasing a condo, you'll have to pay maintenance costs monthly, regardless of whether anything needs fixing, because you'll be part of a homeowners association, which collects a couple $100s a month from the owners of each unit in the building in the form of condominium fees. Don't be too picky. Go ahead, put everything down you can think of you want your new home to have, but be flexible. You don't want to end up continuing to rent for significantly longer than you really want to, because you never find a home that meets all your wish list. First-time home buyers often have to compromise on something because their funds are limited. You may have to live on a busy street, accept outdated decor, make some repairs to the home, or forego that extra bedroom. Of course, you can always choose to continue renting until you can afford everything on your list. You'll just have to decide how important it is for you to become a homeowner rather than renting for another couple of years. Don't lack vision. Even if you can't afford to replace the hideous wallpaper in the bathroom now, it might be worth it to live with the ugliness for a while in exchange for getting into a house you can afford. If the home otherwise meets your needs in terms of the big things that are difficult to change, such as location, size, don't let physical imperfections turn you away. Because doing home upgrades yourself, even when you have to hire a contractor, it is cheaper than paying the increased home value to a seller who has already done the work for you. Don't be swept away. Minor upgrades and cosmetic changes are inexpensive tricks a seller uses to get more money for their home. Sellers may pay $2,000 for minimal upgrades on staging that will end up costing $40,000. If you're on a budget, look for homes whose full potential has yet to be realized. Also, first-time buyers should always look for a house they can add value to, as this assures a bump up in equity to help you up the property ladder. Compromising on the important things. Don't get a 2-bedroom when you know you're planning to have children and want 3 bedrooms. By the same token, don't buy a condo just because it's cheaper when one of the main reasons you're over apartment life is because you hate sharing walls with neighbors. It's true that you probably have to make some compromises to be able to afford your first home, but don't make a compromise that will be a major strain. Do not neglect to inspect. It's tempting to think that you're a homeowner the moment you go into escrow, but not so fast. Before you close on the sale, you need to know what kind of shape the house is in. You don't want to get stuck with a money pit or with the headache of performing a lot of unexpected repairs. Keeping your feelings in check until you have a full picture of the house's physical condition and the soundness of your potential investment will help you avoid making a serious financial mistake. Not choosing to hire an agent or using the seller's agent. Once you're seriously shopping for a home, don't walk into an open house without having an agent or at least being prepared to throw out a name of someone you're working with. Agents are held to the ethical rule that they must act in both the seller and the buyer's party's best interest. But you can see how that might not work in your best interest if you start dealing with a seller's agent before contacting one of your own. Think about the future. It's impossible to perfectly predict the future of your chosen neighborhood, but by paying attention to the information that is available to you now, that can help you avoid unpleasant surprises down the road. Here are some questions you should ask about your prospective property. What kind of development plans are in the works for your neighborhood in the future? Is your street likely to become a major street or a popular rush hour shortcut? Will a highway be built in your backyard in the next 5 years? What are the zoning laws in your area? If there is a lot of undeveloped land, what is likely to get built there? Have some values in the neighborhood been declining? If you're happy with the answers to these questions, then your house's location can keep its rose-colored luster. Should I use more than one agent? Many times the question is posed about using multiple agents. Why not use 2 or 3 agents? Isn't that better than just one? And how do I choose a real estate agent? When I get ready to buy a house, shouldn't I use at least a couple of agents? To answer this question, I will begin by explaining the multiple listing system, also known as the MLS. The MLS is a computer program that allows real estate agents to place details of their property for sale. This information is then most likely fed to other real estate websites, however, without significant detail. In Florida, The MLS is accessible to any realtor that is a member of their local real estate board, giving that agent access and authority to sell any piece of property listed. Realtors work on a commission basis and only get paid when the transaction is fully executed and closed, which means the buyer and/or buyer's lender has paid the agreed upon price. What is the definition of a partner? Webster defines it as one that shares. You will be sharing confidential information with your realtor, and that realtor will be sharing their knowledge of the market and expertise with you in order to get you the best house at the least expensive price. It's a partnership that, once applied to the fullest extent, you will receive better service, professional support, confidence and protection, a real estate consultant. So the next time you wonder if 2 is better than 1, remember that if you choose your realtor wisely, 1 is better than 5. If you want to make sure you're being taken care of properly, make sure your realtor is given all the information they request in a timely manner. You will find that more and more realtors are also requesting that you sign an exclusive buyer-broker representation agreement. This agreement is similar to a listing agreement when a seller decides to sell their home. They give a realtor the exclusive right for a period of time to sell their home. At the end of the agreement, either the home is sold or it can be renewed. Same with an exclusive buyer brokerage representation agreement. Either the buyer has purchased the home or due to a change in criteria, the agreement can be renewed and extended based on those changes. Since you are a potential home buyer, you must understand the difference between seller, buyer, and dual real estate agents. Using the wrong type of agent could affect the financial terms of the deal and have significant legal implications. There has been a significant amount of talk over the past few years about buyer's agents and seller agents. Real estate law has evolved to require that an agent list who they are representing. This is normally done in the process through a disclosure document that you must sign that clarifies whether the agent is working for the buyer or seller. A seller's agent represents the buyer. Most real estate agents who show and market homes are seller's agents. They may be friendly to you as a potential buyer, show you multiple homes, and help you through the offer process. However, they normally are working for the seller if you purchased one of their listings and are looking out for the interests of the seller. Conversely, buyer's agents actually work for the buyer and have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for the best interests of the buyer. There are also transaction agents, dual agents, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Normally, this has nothing to do with who actually pays the agent. So why does it matter? If you are the buyer, it is important for you to use a buyer agent because of the financial, legal, and ethical implications. A seller's agent has a fiduciary responsibility to the seller, not to you as the buyer. This means during the negotiations, a seller's agent will be looking out for the interests of the seller on their listings. Here's a real-life example that will help clarify this. Suppose an agent discovers that the seller must relocate for a new job, has become highly motivated, and is now willing to accept $15,000 under the listed price. If the agent is a buyer's agent working for you, he or she will be obligated and probably excited to tell you this information. However, if the agent is the seller's agent working for the seller, he or she does not have to disclose this information to you and may withhold the information initially in an effort to get the highest offer from you. So then what is a transaction/dual agent? In Florida, you will find that an agent that says they are performing as a transaction broker, in other states it may be called dual agency, means they are acting as a buyer and seller agent. Be careful in this situation. As a buyer, you may want to avoid a transaction agent/dual agency. Realistically, the transaction dual agent cannot fully represent the buyer's interest without adversely affecting the seller and vice versa. There are some excellent agents that can operate effectively in the transaction dual agent role. However, as a buyer, you should realize the potential conflict. If you want the lowest price on a home, seek a good buyer's agent whose loyalties are aligned solely with you. You may wonder who actually pays for a buyer's agent fee. Typically, the selling agent lists the property in the MLS and agrees to split the commission with the agent who brings the buyer. In this scenario, the seller's agent and the buyer's agent split the real estate commission 50-50. This means that although the buyer's agent is working with you, the seller is actually paying for the buyer's agent's fee. Occasionally, you may find a listing where the selling agent does not agree to split the commission with the agent who brings the buyer, and in that case, you would have to negotiate who will pay the buyer's agent fee. You may have signed an exclusive buyer brokerage representation agreement that details how the buyer agent fee is paid, by whom, and if any credit is given for the funds received from the seller's agent. Understanding the financial, legal, and ethical implications of buyer-seller and transaction agent dual agency is important to you as a buyer. Before you start searching for a new home, find yourself a good buyer's agent. They will be aligned with your interests and have the experience to help you negotiate the lowest price for the home. Buying a home can seem stressful and overwhelming, and it isn't without its share of pitfalls. If you are aware of those issues ahead of time, you can protect yourself from costly mistakes and shop with confidence. For many people, a home is the largest purchase they will ever make, but it does not need to be the most difficult. Thank you for listening to Homebuyer Episode 4. That should give all you homebuyers a lot to think about. We are grateful for the time you have taken to listen to this podcast, and we look forward to your input on what you would like to hear about in future podcasts. You can find the show notes at www.homesellerhomebuyer.com, and you can leave your comments, questions, and suggestions there, or you can email us at info@homesellerhomebuyer.com. Tell your friends, family, and coworkers about Home Seller Homebuyer Podcast. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to the Home Seller Homebuyer Podcast and catch us on the next episode. Thank you for listening and stay informed.